And that, so when I sit down to write or I sit down to make or I go to rehearsal, I feel connected to folks all over the place that I know are also supporting this moment and making my moment possible. And I'm just really grateful to be in the number, as they say.
And it seems like it's even in creating art in different mediums as well, because I know there's a very strong comedy circuit around here as well, both a black comedy circuit as well as just a comedy circuit in general. But then you also, which I had forgotten until I was reading your bio, because of course I knew about you being a playwright, knew about you being an actress, knew about you being all of that. But I forget that you were also in the same category as Jaghetto, because you also do puppeteering, which I totally forgot about, because I was like, wait a minute, I forgot. She does do puppeteering. So it seems like we're also finding ways to get involved in other forms of art that may not be the standard form of art that people usually associate with us, be that singing, dancing, and theater.
Right. And I think that just allows us more breadth of stories. I tell people all the time that sometimes stories come to me, and I'm like, oh, instead of me saying like, oh, I'm a theater artist, so I'm going to do theater, I try to be more present to say, I am going to create this story, and you can be whatever medium you need to be. If you're a puppet show, well, then let's figure out how to do puppets. If you're a film, let's figure out how to do film. If you're a TV show, let's figure that out. I never want a story that feels important to me to come to me and I say, well, I don't really do that. So I can't make you. I really try to be open when it comes to medium, and I'm grateful for all the folks who are doing that as well.
Yeah, it seems like more people are being open to doing a variety of things. Definitely stay on the line. I want to find out who else is on the line, but don't go anywhere because I want to continue the conversation. But, Steve, who else do we have on the line?
We do have someone else on the line. Before we get to them, we're going to drop this one promo.
Are you enjoying the smoothest conversation in podcasting? Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Hi, this is DJ Smooth Jazz, syndicated radio host and co-owner of Portfolio Group LLC, your smooth jazz lifestyle and entertainment group with offices in Durham, North Carolina. Portfolio Group LLC specializes in promoting the lifestyle of smooth jazz listeners with the promotion of smooth jazz events and the distribution of African American owned wines. For more information, portfoliogroup.llc.com, or you can swing by my secondary site, djsmoothjazz.com. Now back to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark.
And we are back. Thank you for calling Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Who do we have on the line this evening?
Hey, Dean and Mark, it's Art Sturdevant.
Hey, Art Sturdevant.
How you
Glad
doing?
to have you on the line as well. Art Sturdevant is actually a comedian out of the Asheville area, and I saw him on Facebook and was like, I need to find out more about this person as well, because part of what he does is his comedy is basically that he is basically a basic human person, and basically he's very the common guy kind of approach, I guess, is the best way to kind of describe what I got from what I saw as the way that you promote yourself. Is that a fair assessment, Art?
Absolutely. It's just stuff that kind of happens in my life, and I talk about it on stage.
So what are some of the things that happened in your life, and what got you to get involved in comedy, and what made you decide that you wanted to be a comedian? Because like I said, a lot of people, they decide that something basic happens in their life, and they're like, I think I can make jokes about this. So is that what happened with you, or did you just decide that you were a good storyteller based on just some very basic common things that happened in your life?
Well, I actually started doing stand-up back in the early 80s, and back then there wasn't really a way for you to get a lot of stage time if you weren't one of the big hubs like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. And so I did it for a few years, and then I decided to go to college. And when I got out of college, I worked and raised a family, and I stopped doing comedy for about 25 years. About 9 years ago now, I came out of retirement, and it was a whole different world, so I kind of had to start over from scratch. And what made me really want to do it is I just couldn't not do it. I mean, if it was available, I needed to go make people laugh.
What were some of the things that you saw that were different, say, when you first started getting into comedy? You did mention the big city centers and everything, and I remember that era as well. But what else about comedy changed lately that makes it easier to do? Because it seems to me, for one, you're in a kind of a hub area, because I remember correctly, you're kind of based in that Asheville area, and I know that that's also pretty much where spoken word started at. That whole spoken word scene came out of Asheville. People forget that, but it's actually the creator of that was out of Asheville.
Absolutely, and there's a big comedy festival every year. We've got an open mic just about every night. Asheville has a really vibrant scene, and really, if you're usually if you're in even a smaller town like Asheville, Charlotte, Raleigh, I mean smaller compared to say a New York or Los Angeles, you now have a lot of stage time available. I could be on stage every night of the week if I wanted to, and that wasn't the case in the early 80s. So I would say the first month after I came back, I was on stage more than probably 3 years before I quit doing comedy in the 80s.
Now, we talked to a comedian last week that would join us in the conversation along with some musicians and some other people, and one of the things that she said she did is that she preferred staying away from politics and things of that nature. And I was wondering, are you one of those comedians that stays away from that stuff, or are you one of those comedians that doesn't mind touching whatever is going on in the common day world, whether that's politics, whether that's social justice or whatever? Because she definitely had some good comedy and definitely had some humor about what was happening, but she tried to stay away from that and made it very clear that she was staying away from it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily stay away from political material. My philosophy on either politics, anything that's kind of touchy, politics, religion, edgy material, or even blue material with off-color language, if you have a funny idea that takes you there, then you need to go there. But if you're trying to do it and trying to get the material, I want to be the edgy comic, so I'm going to think up material that takes me in an edgy area, it doesn't work, or at least not for me. I can't really tell somebody else how to do it, but for myself, it's not about whether you're doing politics or not doing it. It's whether you're funny and any of your funny ideas take you there. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, but I'm just curious, and I'm actually curious from both of you, because I know that because Monet has done stuff with social justice and things of that nature with arts and everything, and I think both of you probably have worked with improv. And I know that sometimes improv can sometimes run into like a touchy zone with that, because you're asked to do that. There's a theme about improv, which is kind of like the what-if kind of movement, but some of those what-ifs wind up being kind of touchy what-ifs, because you might have somebody there that the joke may be revolving around race, or it may be revolving around gender identities and things of that nature, and there may be people in the audience that take offense to that. So I was wondering how both of you address with dealing with those issues, because sometimes you're put into those situations where you might need to address those kind of issues, but you don't want to necessarily lose the audience.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Monet.
I can jump in there. So here in Durham, I helped to found a black improv team called Improv Noir, and we talk a lot about ethics. And one is at any moment, because we're still people, because at any moment something comes up that's just like, can't do that, that's too much. Like, we can call a scene, we can stop it. The other thing is, and this is a wider comedic ethic thing that I learned from a local group called Meddlesome, is to punch up, right? So you punch. So if I am where I am in this society, like as a queer black woman, I can punch up about like race. I can punch up around gender. I can punch up around like sexuality. But if I'm a Christian, I'm not going to make jokes around trans folks. Like, that's inappropriate and it's disrespectful, and that's not me punching up because of my position in our society. So I think when I think about that, then there's less room for folks. I mean, there's always room for someone to get offended, but like that's how I move, and that's how we talked about moving as a collective.
Okay. And what do you want to add to that, Art?
I totally agree with what Monet just said. I mean, you absolutely you don't want to be doing stand-up comedy that that frames you as picking on somebody, and punching up is the way to get there. Punching up, and also, and as you know, as a white male straight person, there's not a lot of I don't have a lot of groups in a position where I'm a discriminated minority, so I don't have any, not even age. But it is of value. You just don't want to be somebody to pick on people. And as far as politics is concerned, I do have a point of view, and it is very progressive. And how much of that comes out with the audience depends on, the first thing I'm trying to do is make them laugh. So if I'm going to create a situation where they can't laugh, then I'm going to be careful what I throw out there. What I'm not going to do is be conservative for a conservative audience and progressive for a progressive audience, because that isn't true to me.
And I think that's a lot of times what artists wind up not doing is, it seems to me that both of you are saying that the artists need to be true to themselves, and sometimes I think that artists try to satisfy what they think is the broader community and not necessarily be true to themselves. So I'm imagining that both of you, when you give advice to aspiring people that are coming up, you're probably telling them, first of all, to be true to themselves and one, to understand what they're getting into. Because, I mean, it's not like most artists, I'm not saying that some artists won't, but most artists are not exactly going to get rich at their art form. I mean, we're all hoping that we succeed in the art form, but the reality is that most are not going to be the Martin Lawrences of the world.
Very true, and your best chance at it in stand-up is like you said, is to have your own voice. A lot of times people do very generic material. I'm a whole lot more critical of people my own age. I'm 58 than I probably should be, because a lot of times people in my age group won't have an authentic voice. They'll just say like book jokes that they've heard, story jokes that they've heard at their workplace that have been around for a million years. And I really like it when people talk about who they are, when they talk about what's funny about who they are as a person.
So if you don't mind sharing, Art, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I put the last comedian on the spot, which was last week. Can you give us an example of some of your everyday life kind of humor? So if you could share with us some of like what would be a standard art routine.
Absolutely. I'll just give you an idea. Let's see. So one thing I like to talk about is, with comedians, you always hear us talking about how we're not especially sexy people. We don't do well with romance. We don't get a lot of sex. And I guess that's all true, but I have an edge. You see, I only do stand-up comedy at night. During the day, I'm a 58-year-old overweight bald furniture salesman. So line up, bitches.
And it's all because of the humor of the time. Now, you use the B word, and I know sometimes that throws people off as well. So does that, have you ever run into trouble with that word and everything? Because I know we are in the middle of the Me Too movement, and I know that I imagine that sometimes words like that can get folks in trouble. But then again, Monet, I also know that you have actually used some very profound kind of language as well in some of your humor and some of your theater.
Yeah, I haven't run into any problem. Go ahead, Monet.
I was going to say, I think people, I've heard a lot of things about language, but mainly I think it's about communicating, and whatever you want to communicate, and whatever, then use language however you should. It's all you are.
Oh, what I was just going to say was, I've never run into any problem with, that's the only place where I use that one word. And I've never run into a problem with it because the framing of the joke is making fun of me. I obviously don't have the social standing to make that claim, and that counterpoint is what makes the joke work. So it's not really that I'm calling somebody that literally; it's that I'm pretending that I'm a person who could, when obviously I'm not.
Now, Monet, some of the theater that you have done has also been framed in the context of dealing and having people think about what's going on in their relationships and things of that nature. So I was wondering if you could share some of the theater that you've had, because I know some of your theater has talked about things like gender identity. It's talked about things like